Hey, discerning listeners, sister wives, let's watch. As you might be able to tell, I am growing out my beard a little bit. I usually always have a little bit of a scruff, but I'm growing it out mainly because of laziness. I don't like shaving my face. It's annoying. It seems like you just go whoop, 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 but it takes forever. You have hairs going different directions. You always miss a few. You got to get the ones that are right near your mouth. It's annoying. And if I could avoid it, I do. And often I'll only shave before I record because I want to be presentable. But apparently I don't care anymore. And my wife likes it when it's, shorter because I'm less prickly, But I feel like once I get over a certain length amount, I'll be less prickly and more just tickly. And so... But one of the things that I've noticed, because I don't look at myself in the mirror very often, and I'm looking at myself now because I have to look at myself on the monitor, is that I have a lot of gray hairs all of a sudden. Last time I had a longer beard, I don't think I had as many, and it's weirded me out because on my head I don't have very many. I mean, you can't really see them on camera, but there's a couple in there. But it's like, what's going on here? Is this where like all of my old wisdom resides in my chin? And why is it just right here? Like there's a smattering around. And really my whole hair on my face, it's lighter than I don't know what's going on. But anyway, and then I was looking at myself in the monitor and I'm thinking, who do I remind myself of? And so I decided to Google it. And I kind of think, look, it reminded me of Riker a little bit, I even have a shirt that's kind of similar color. Try to go to the face. I don't know if it's like the hair, the forehead, the ears, Oh, I love that show. And then I thought, well, of course, everyone thinks I look like Brandon Lee. So, when I was younger and long hair, people would say, oh my God, you look just like Brandon Lee. The Crow was he died tragically on set. Seattle hero, born. He was, he lived in Seattle. His dad, Bruce Lee. They're both buried next to each other. You can visit that if you're ever in Seattle. So anyway, let's watch the show.
So I'm leaving Mary, I'm leaving Christine, and I'm leaving Janelle to go down and see Robin, and that leaves them kind of feeling a little bit sad, hurt, or raw. And I think it's as much the fact that I'm going to be away as it is the fact that I'm seeing somebody else.
After the weekend.
It's possible that their feelings of sadness upon him leaving are genuine and relatable. It's also possible that it's motivated by wanting to not rock the boat, or I don't know. But it also raises this question about the social dynamic of scarcity. You wonder if it's by accident or by design that within this group or religious group or cult, whatever you want to say, I don't know what word, because I don't know enough about the group to know if it is a cult or not, but you could imagine that if one was trying to design a group that would make those in power feel better about themselves, then this might be one of the mechanisms you might design. You are in power as the men, and you are saying, boy, I don't feel very special. Well, what if my presence and my love was rare, and I had to spread myself out among many wives and many children? I would end up feeling very special. In a more mundane way, this can happen in divorces, and when you have parents that are living in different homes, and you have a parent that is less often involved with the children, right? They're considered the non-custodial, or they have the kids only every other weekend, that kind of thing. And what can happen if you're the primary parent, you can often feel this difference where your kids take you for granted, but they worship the other parent, even though the other parent is putting in a lot less effort and might have even not wanted the kids very often. And you're like, I'm the one that's loving the kids. I'm the one that's dedicating the time. I'm the one that's doing all the hard work. And, Disneyland dad over here is getting all the love and doesn't have to deal with any of the bad moods, and the kids seem to worship him. It's a known social phenomenon. So you could imagine how a group, if the men in power wanted to increase their specialness, increase their self-esteem or their worth, is to design a system in which, by design, they are stretched thin in terms of how much time they can spend with everybody. And then everyone just dad walks in, I'm just trying to imagine what it would feel like, because it's like, oh, it's my turn finally, because he rotates, and you just feel like, oh, I'm being blessed by my husband. You could imagine that doing a number on how you saw him, right? And how it would demote yourself. It's sort of like you run into a famous person or something, and you just know that you're one of many. And so you're just like this rare moment of like, oh, I get to actually talk to you. In fact, I would experience this as a professor sometimes, because there's some amount of worship that students will exhibit, not all, but many, because you hold so much power and you hold the keys to their future sometimes, especially in counseling and therapy. And I would have students that would ask for office hours, or they would email me or whatever, or they would talk to me after class. And a lot of the times they would, say, oh, I'm so sorry for bothering you, or they would say, oh, thank you so much for giving me this time. I have a few questions, depending on the situation. But I would often say, do not say that. I'm getting paid. Your tuition goes to the university, and they pay me to give you this time. So you don't get down on your knees and thank the McDonald's cashier for giving you the Big Mac that you paid for. You just say, thanks for the Big Mac. You don't feel like, oh my God, I'm so happy that I'm getting my money. You're paying tens of thousands, sometimes over 100,000. Graduate school can cost, like a doctor, it can cost $150,000, $200,000. I'm getting paid. So, it's nice that you're thanking me, but don't feel like I'm going out of my way or something. This is literally my job to answer your questions and spend time with you. So don't demote yourself in that way. So, you can imagine how for this group, it could be another mechanism that and then what it does is it keeps the power structure in power, because you have all these women and all these children that are looking up to the men as these special entities, right? Because they're spread so thin in terms of their family get-together time that all their ideas are great, and you don't want to bother them. It's
5 hours away, and so I always told him, there was a couple of times where I'm like, you really can't go. You can't leave me. And you can't leave your family. Here you are replacing your family with Robin and her kids. And it was hard. And at the same point, I realized that it needed to happen, but it didn't necessarily make it easier.
I really feel like I'm getting mixed messages from all of the three wives. On one hand, they seem to be engineering the courtship with Robin, suggesting it, almost pushing Cody to do it. On the other hand, it seems like they're not on board with it. Mary, Janelle, Christine, particularly Mary and Christine, have, at least in interviews, exhibited that it's hard for them. Now, maybe if they could be fully honest, they would say, well, yeah, there's some downside, but, most of it is for the better, for me personally and for the family. But, and I've said this all before, and I'll stop repeating this, that we can't take their point of view as an indication as to whether or not this is good for them, because a lot of them have been born and raised within a brainwashed cult-like system that has certain ideas that, it's sort of like in the past, there were a lot of women who were against allowing women to vote. When in our country we were pushing for feminist notions that women have value and thus should be able to vote like men. there were a lot of women who marched against that idea. And you think, why would women march against the idea of them having a voice? Well, because they were indoctrinated into a patriarchal, anti-woman society, and they absorbed it. And so you can't look at those women and say, like, well, maybe we shouldn't give women the vote because they're saying that they don't want it and it's a bad thing. They're even saying, like, women shouldn't be allowed to vote because they're too emotional or whatever, this kind of stuff. So, and there were even women back then that were saying that they didn't want the vote because they didn't want to have to deal with voting. They were just like, it's an annoying thing. Don't bother us with that, which I could kind of imagine being legitimate on some level. But anyway, so not that I'm saying you shouldn't vote. I always vote. In Washington, we've always had mail-in voting. So it's, ever since, as long as I've been voting since the late 80s, we've always had mail-in. And as long as I stay up to date on my voter registration regarding my address, I always get my pamphlets and my ballots, and I always vote. So it's easy for me. But anyway, participate. But point is that we can't necessarily trust, and I'll stop repeating this, but I just want to every time that because a lot of what I do is react to what I imagine people's psychological needs are. And I'm looking for evidence as to what's going on with them, and I will take what they're saying, but then it's going through this filter of like, well, but can I really trust that they even know what their rights are? So I'll stop repeating this over and over again, but I just want to establish that.
Aurora, she's 7 right now. And my youngest is Brianna, and she is 5. I was married before, and we were in a polygamous culture, but we never took on another wife. We were monogamous. It was a difficult marriage, and finally made the decision to, that we needed to end it. And as much as I'm scared of all these unknowns, and it'll work out, it'll be okay.
All right. So another thing that I won't continually reiterate is that I think it is not okay that the show is involving children. We all understand that children can't consent in a knowingly way, because even if you explain the risks, they're children. How would they really comprehend the possible consequences to consenting to be on a show like this? There's no reason why you could have this entire show and never have the kids on camera. The kids are important to the story, of course, but at least up until this point, the main storyline centers on the adults. So I'll just stop reiterating that, but we're hearing that there's some more specifics about Robin's previous marriage. She's saying that it was a difficult marriage. She also said something earlier. By the way, I'm skipping forward. I mean, I'm watching, but I'm not constantly stopping and commenting because I think it would take too long to get through all this. And I would be making videos maybe for the rest of my life, since there are, how many seasons? I forget, 14 or something? 18? Anyway, so one of the things she said earlier was that she is focused on creating a safe environment for her kids. That's a particular word, right? Safe environment. And of course, every parent wants to create a safe environment, but it sort of was a yellow flag indication that her previous marriage was unsafe in some way, abusive, violent, or threatening or something. And who knows, but she is saying that their marriage was difficult. I don't know what that says, but that could affect things, right? That you came out of a difficult situation and you're just looking for some stability. You can imagine someone, I hadn't thought about this, that if you were emerging out of an abusive, violent, scary, unsafe relationship, not only for you, but for your kids, and you really want to have some safety, well, there's safety in numbers, right? If you have 3 other wives and a bunch of other kids and a lot of eyeballs on the guy, right, keeping him in check and vouching for his non-violent ways, then you can imagine yourself as a woman taking that over randomly dating guys that don't have those eyeballs on him, right? That don't have those vouching fors, if that is a phrase that I can use. The other thing she says is that she and her previous husband grew up in the polygamous group, but they were not polygamous themselves. So I don't know what that says, but it's just a detail that I didn't know. The other thing that she's been saying that I have been showing clips from is she seems to legitimately be in love with Cody. Their relationship is pretty new. It's long distance. They're 5 hours apart, I believe. And they have only been courting for a couple months, so I don't know how many times they've actually seen each other. But, she seems to have genuine energy towards him.
I think he's gone way too much. I think him going down to see Robin is tearing us apart a bit. And then again, on one more flip side, she's great.
Yeah, there's so many contradictory messages. Tearing us apart, that's a particular phrase, right? It's not like she's saying, we're going through a hard adjustment, or this can be, I miss him. It's tearing us apart. And then I think, well, they're also in a really insular group, and I think there could have, even if they weren't in a polygamous situation, just having one family member that is away for a while could feel very threatening or hard, or if you're very isolated, I don't know. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. So I remember as a kid, the adults in my life would talk about how the older that they got, the faster that time moves by. And I even remember as a kid, when I was like 10 years old, thinking that when I was younger, time moved more slowly. Now, there are a few reasons for this phenomenon, but one of the reasons seems to be that the older we get, the more we fall into a routine and we stop really paying attention to our lives. Well, of course, therapy can be a wonderful place to slow things down and give us a chance to focus on things. Generally speaking, therapists are pretty good at creating a space for us to do that. And sometimes it seems like we need that outside influence to get us to slow down. Well, one place you can find a therapist is BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, it's definitely worth giving a try. So take a moment, visit betterhelp.com/Kirk today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Kirk.
Going to give you the attention that he's given to her, because she is the new thing, the new excitement, and we've been married for 20 years. And so you just think, gosh, it's been a long time.
It's a friendship.
Yeah, I just don't understand the way they talk. When they say stuff like that, I think, yeah, that makes sense. But then earlier, so you wonder if their emotional side is more of them, and then when they seem to be just saying things unemotionally, it's from the cult or from what they think they're supposed to say, or just from a different side of them. I imagine, as I've been saying, it's multifaceted. There are parts of them that are very relatable in that scene, but there are other parts that might have to be navigated through to be more relatable, like they want friends, they want support, they want community, they want variety in their life. I don't know, it sounds like that's what some of the motivation was based on. It's like, we're bored, let's add more people. And to me, that sounds ridiculous, but to others, it might not sound so ridiculous. If you think about just how your life can get kind of routine and just having a difference, like you have a cousin that is visiting with their family and they're going to stay with you for a month, and you're thinking, well, there's pros and cons. Well, one of the pros is, it'll be interesting and it'll be a break in the routine, so maybe it's kind of like that for them. But I don't know, just there's statements where I wish I could just pull them out of the group for a while and deprogram them somehow quickly and then ask them, okay, what do you want? Because I'd be curious. if they really want this. And maybe they would say that they would want this, but I feel like I'm getting information through some sort of a veil, some sort of an editor, you know what I mean, in their own minds. I don't know.
I don't know that I even want to stay sometimes. You know, the only thing that even wants me to stay is my commitment level and my daughter. You know, this is her family, and I wouldn't ever do that to her.
She says, I don't even know if I want to stay. That's what she said, right? I'll rewind it because I'm like, did she say that? Is that what she said? And then she says, the only reason, I think what she's saying is the only reason why I'm staying is because of my commitment level. So that just sounds like a value or a choice or maybe even a religious construct, some kind of like, well, I made a commitment to God, so I'm going to keep that commitment. And then for her daughter, because her daughter is close, probably very close to her siblings. For her daughter, she was born, you know, for all the other kids, they were born into this scenario, right? Except for, I have to look at my notes again, but at the very least for her daughter, she was born into the system, right? Right. Yeah. So Mariah was born after I think all the three women were married. So to Cody. So for Mariah to be pulled away from her dad, from her two other moms, from how many kids are in the family right now? I also took notes on that. Right now there are looking. Where did I keep that? The thing is my notes are so long because there's so many people that, well, let's see. So there's 5 kids and truly born this season. So there's going to be 6 with Christine, and then there's 6 with Janelle. Right. So, you know, at least 11 other siblings that Mariah would be pulled away from. And Mariah doesn't have any other full biological kids, you know, because for Mary, she only has Mariah. So Mariah would go from living with a family of, how many is that, 11, 15 other people, and she would live with just her mom. You know, she's 14 at this point, so maybe it wouldn't be that big of a deal to her, but, you know, it would probably be a really big deal. But anyway, so for Mary, she was the one that kind of got all this stuff going. At least, then I wonder, is that just something that they say? Is that just a way of making it sound better to the cameras, that it was their idea and they wanted these things to happen? I don't know. But at the very least, that also just kind of points in the direction that for Mary, regardless of Robin, she's not sure, you know, because if you asked me as to whether or not I want to stay married to my wife, there's no ambiguity about it. I certainly wouldn't say the only reason why I'm staying here is because I made a previous commitment. You know, that's the only, and because of kids or something, you know, that's not what I would be saying. Those would be factors, I suppose, but yeah, I don't understand. Now, for y'all, if you've watched all the seasons, maybe this develops into something of divorce, but I just can't imagine, given what I'm hearing or what I imagine the group, maybe there's distance in the future, but I can't imagine divorce happening, really. But then I think, well, once the kids are old, anyway, I'll keep watching.
And up what he's used to. But I'm just praying that what I have to replace it with will be even better.
I'm sorry about that broken thing.
That's all right.
Now everyone looks mixed up.
Okay, so Dayton, the oldest kid of Robin's, apparently broke this frame of Cody and the family. So what does that say? Is it a legit accident? Is it some conscious or unconscious expression of Dayton's It doesn't get much more symbolic than that.
Their home birth is a common thing.
That's because when you go to the hospital, they have all of this information they want. The dad is sitting there trying to protect his identity because he can't be known to have more than one wife.
I mean, if the husband goes to jail, then it's a problem.
Are you relaxed?
Sometimes.
Can't relax.
Right. That's another aspect of high control groups, cults, in that they will do things to artificially separate their members from society. They might require their members to wear a uniform that will alienate them from others. They might require their members or influence their members to believe in ideas that will often alienate them from their family, from their community. And another is to do something illegal. To be involved in polygamy for a lot of people is considered immoral. It's, weird at the very least. And so you're automatically going to separate your members. You want that in a high control group. I don't know what sort of is going on. By the way, someone reached out to me from this fundamentalist Mormon group and is, I think, going to come on the YouTube channel to talk about her experiences. That might have already been published by the time this video has been made. Probably not. But so if you know anything about this, feel free to reach out to me. And I'm curious, because a lot of what I'm watching depends on me understanding at least a little bit about the group that they come from. So, yeah, I mean, just imagine that the entire family can't even go to the hospital because they're worried that they're going to go to prison. The other aspect of this is that when you automatically, because of the way your family is configured, are considered to be outside of the law, well, what that does is that is a very strong notion to everyone in the family, the children and everybody, that the law and the government are not always right, and that our way and God, or the way that they see God, is above the law. And it's another way to have control over your people. Because if the law or society or even another Mormon group that doesn't do polygamy anymore were to criticize you, well, we understand that outsiders don't know anything, because they even consider what we're doing to be illegal. They're willing to throw us all in jail. And, you tell all the kids that. Do you think that daddy and the mommies should go to jail? And the kids are like, no, because of course they believe that. They don't want their parents to go to jail. And so it just instills this notion of, very firmly, this instills the notion of in-group, out-group, which allows you to say anything, right? You could say, well, we also know that women are supposed to be involved. The other thing that I'm hearing from them, one of the daughters was saying that she didn't want to be in a polygamous marriage. She wanted just to be in a monogamous marriage. And the parents were saying, or at least one of them was saying, that that's okay. But I couldn't tell, because you'll hear this in fundamentalist Christian groups where you will pose the question, well, what if your child is gay? What if your child grows up and tells you that they're gay? And people will say the line that, well, I'll still love them and I'm not going to reject them. So that's, of course, something you would want someone to say. But deep down, though, they still don't really believe that that's okay. They'll say, yeah, I love them and I won't reject them. But they also know that they're going to be on a campaign of trying to change them and influencing them and tell them, it's similar to if you were to ask a parent in this scenario, what if your kid grows up to be atheist? And the parent's like, I'll still love them and I'll still invite them for family gatherings. But, and they don't say this, I'm going to be disappointed in them. I'm going to be frequently trying to change their mind. I'm going to subtly reject them. I'm going to be talking with other people in the family about how they are on the wrong path. I might be terrified that they're going to hell, and so therefore I feel obligated to save my child from eternal damnation. So I can't really tell from context what they actually feel about it, but I could see how they would believe that if their kid decided to be monogamous, that they would be okay with it. Robin, for example, was not in a polygamous marriage. So it sounds like there's some flexibility there, which I'm glad to hear.
That was so easy. That was so easy. That was amazingly easy.
So cool.
So I haven't been showing all the clips, but I think what Christine, it's Christine, right? You'd think I would know their, yeah, that's Christine. For some reason, in the beginning, I got their names mixed up. I thought that Mary was Janelle and Christine was Janelle. It was confusing at first, and so I actually spent time getting pictures of their faces so that I could put their faces in the notes. I'm not saying that all white people look alike to me, but people say that about Asians. Whenever anyone walks up to me and says like, "Oh my God, there's someone I know that looks just like you," or "I met someone that looks, like your twin brother," and I'm like, half Asian. And it's almost 99% of the time that's the case, and I'm fine with that. It doesn't get to me, for the most part. But and of course, growing up with everyone saying that all Asians look alike, and it's just, So I'm not saying that all white people look alike, but I am saying that I was confused. Anyway, so Christine, I think what she is saying is that because it was all home birth up until this point, and they were doing that because of the worries of being locked up in prison. And so they are now in the hospital. Why did they allow? I wonder what's going on behind the scenes. That maybe because the show is involved, they're like, we'll pay for any lawyer. But anyway, what's going on there? Who knows? So for them, they are saying, Christine, she's saying, "Oh my God, that was so easy. Oh my God, that was so easy." I think what she is saying is, wow, modern medicine is great. The epidural is fantastic. It's so much easier than my previous births, and I should have been doing this all along. And, sometimes you can have home births that will involve that kind of care, but not typically. So, and certainly you can have home births and births that don't involve epidurals that can also be wonderful in all the ways that it'll be wonderful. But yeah, a lot of people will say, "Give me the epidural." I mean, it's not without its, I've never been through it, obviously, but from what I've heard from people that have, it's got its ups and downs. But yeah, anyway, so it sounds like she's celebrating modern medicine and regretting her previous choices to not involve that originally. I don't know.
Look at cute, this little face,
I told you, Cam, you can't hold
You feel kind of like when we all got out of the car, I sort of felt like we were sort of this mass.
We were gonna go
mass of
overtake
people.
the hospital.
Walking
We
up
had a
to
baby
the
to see.
hospital.
Seems like we're missing someone. It's really good we made it up.
Yeah, my family is like that too. When there's a new person in our family, we all descend. And I didn't know that that was unusual until some of my more extended family members or other people, and I guess some of the staff would mention this as well, that, wow, you're all here. And, I guess every family can operate in the way that they want to, but it is a wonderful moment for Alina, actually, who works for psychology in Seattle now. they were born and I was there at the hospital, we would sleep overnight and be in the lobby. As I say this out loud, I guess maybe it sounds insane, but it was our way of showing support for the mother as she was going through all that she was going through. And, it's important. So I was there when Alina was born, and my brother asked me to film that initial process when, they bring the infant into the room where they will weigh and do all the stuff soon after birth, and then they give the child back to the mother. And I was there filming it because my brother was involved in the handling, right? That was a wonderful moment. And now Alina works for Psychology Seattle, and Alina is becoming a therapist. And Psychology in Seattle is paying for their tuition. So when you become a member or a patron or watch a video and there's ad revenue, we've always given scholarships and money to charities and this kind of thing. And one of the ways that I think we can support society and give back, one of the ways that Psychology in Seattle can give back is through scholarships and also through helping people get educations, particularly in mental health, because we need more people like that. So maybe they thought we were a polygamous family. All right. I don't know. All right, well, that does it for that episode. We are having our 16th anniversary live stream in September on the 14th and 15th for 8 hours apiece. And if you want to send in your cards, postcards, your packages, your fan mail, your fan art, I would love to open that on air. And if you're planning on making any fan art, even if you're not a particularly good artist, there's nothing wrong with that. If you could make it not just me, because people will make fan art of me, which is great and very flattering, but I don't know, involve yourself in it or the other co-hosts or maybe some of the characters. Sketching in Place on Instagram will have the characters, and you can go to Sketching in Place on Instagram for that. And if you want to send in your fan art, also sometimes I'll frame your fan art and put it in my office. I have some over there. So I'd love to see that. But even if it's just a postcard, whatever, send it in. Or if you have like a craft that you make, maybe you make little macrame, this and that. I always love getting those kinds of things. Some of those items are behind me as well. If you watched my office video, I had some of those things. So yeah, the address is on our website, but I'll give it to you right now. It's at the bottom of our homepage, our mailing address. But you mail it to Psychology in Seattle, Box 214. Then the address is 10002. That's 3 zeros, 10002. Aurora Avenue North, Suite 36, Seattle, Washington, 98133. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.